All right, so can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, all right. All right, thank you for a nice introduction, Tomohiro. My name is Kosuke Uetake from Yale School of Management. And also thank you for having me here. And I'm really pleased to talk about the economics of platforms, which is kind of relevant to my research agenda. Because Tomohiro did a very nice introduction of myself, so I'm not going to repeat this slide. But basically, my research interest is around big data, how to use big data for platform design, market margin acquisition, attention, etc. But basically, I'm interested in using big data, getting insights of customer behavior or from behavior for better policy design or from strategy design. One thing I want to emphasize, add to the Tomohiro's introduction is I've been also working with a bunch of private companies, both in Japan and the US, like JR, Zozo. This is an online apparel platform in Japan, and also IBM, Etsy, Weight Watchers, Lucid, etc., etc. So because I'm in business school, I'm really interested in working with those private companies as well. Okay. Right, so this is about myself, and so now I want to talk about today's main topic, which is platform economics. So before getting into the key economic factors to understanding platform economy, I want to start from some definition of platform to make sure that everybody is on the same page. So in economics, a platform is an intermediary that makes a market between buyers and sellers, right? So I think one classic example of a platform is this. This is a farmer's market. Farmer's market provide a physical marketplace for farmers and consumers, right? So the good thing is the platform, the farmer's market, okay, provides a physical marketplace for farmers and market who make transactions, and also they can set rules, right? The farmers need to pay commissions for the platform, and also the farmers market can decide the rules for farmers who can get in, who cannot get in, etc. Right? So the key thing here is the farmers market, the platform provides a physical marketplace and decides the rules so that the farmers and consumers can make efficient transactions in the marketplace. But I think more broadly speaking, platform is an intermediary that brings groups of users to facilitate economic or social exchanges. So it doesn't have to be physical marketplace, right? So other examples of platforms include stock exchanges or payment networks or media. So in payment networks, Visa or MasterCard, the PayPal, they don't provide physical marketplace, but through payment network, Visa credit card, MasterCard credit card, merchants and consumers can make transactions about money, right? The same for media. They don't provide a physical marketplace, but media provide a space in papers and websites for advertisers and consumers, and they basically make transactions about information, right? So the platform is a business model that provides some physical marketplace or some space or some opportunities for sometimes two sides, sometimes more than two sides, but the multi-sides platform can allow people, stakeholders to make transactions on the platform, right? But I think these days when we speak about platforms, people might think more about online marketplaces, like e-commerce, Amazon, eBay, or Apple, or advertising platform for Google or Facebook, and all social platforms like Facebook, Twitters, or Match.com, right? So for example, for the Apple's App Store, there are a market for developers, and there is a market for consumers. And through Apple's App Store, developers and consumers make transactions, right? So this is a kind of more modern platform, online marketplaces. And probably I'm going to talk more about online marketplaces today rather than physical market store like the farmer's market. And on top of that, a more modern form of platform is, I think, the sharing economy. This is a peer-to-peer online platforms. Most of the case, this is online, right? So this is a peer-to-peer. So both sides of the market, consumer, the buyers and sellers are individuals like us, right? But in online e-commerce like Amazon, eBay, Etsy, maybe it's not, Amazon or eBay, this is B2C, right? So the concept of sharing economy, peer-to-peer markets is exploit underutilized assets like house, cars, sometimes time. And the key thing is internet, right? Internet helps transactions of those underutilized assets. Without internet, it is really hard to find the transaction partners. Right? Well, there are a whole bunch of different types of peer-to-peer platforms. I guess most of you have used some or most of the online platforms, so I'm not going to talk about the details of each platform, right? So this is about setting the stage to make sure that everybody is on the same page. Definition of a platform is kind of a platform provides multi-site stakeholders, and they make transactions on the platform, and the platform can set the rules to make the transaction more efficient and more profitable. Right? So to understanding the economics of platform, I want to touch upon 5 things today. I mean, there are a whole bunch of things that needs to be taken care of, but because the time is limited, I want to talk about the following 5 things in today's talk. Okay? So one is the network externalities, the second point is market design, and the third point is regulation. Okay? Because of time, I may have to skip some of the slides, but I'm happy to take questions after the talk, and also I'm happy to talk offline if you have questions after that. Okay, so let me talk each point in turn. Okay. All right, so the first point, and I think this is the most important characteristics of platform, which is network externalities. So the network externalities mean that users care about the participation and usage of users in the other side of the market. So for example, think about Apple's app market. Again, there is a platform for developers, side of the developers and side for the consumers. Okay? And network externalities basically mean that developers, they want to produce products in iPhone or iOS or Android because there is a large customer base on the other side of the market. And also customers, consumers are attracted to those iOS or Android platforms because there are more developers and there are more applications, right? So the willingness to participate in the platform, the app market, depends upon how many people, how many developers there are in the other side of the market. Right? So the developers' willingness to participate with the platform also depends upon how many people, how many consumers are using that platform. Right? So if there are more consumers on the other side of the market, then my willingness to pay as a developer is going to increase. Right? The same for the credit card. I have Visa credit card because I know that this Visa credit card is accepted by many merchants. Right? And also merchants accept the transaction through Visa credit card because merchants know that there are many consumers using Visa credit card. Right? The same for the sharing economy. This is the Airbnb case. Right? There are the side of the guests and the side of the hosts. And the guests use Airbnb because there are many hosts. And the number of hosts increase, then the guest willingness to use the Airbnb service also getting higher. Right? The same for the host. The hosts are willing to join Airbnb because there are many guests, and as the number of guests increase, then the host willingness to join to the Airbnb also increases. Right? So this network externalities create this cycle. Right? Guests attract hosts, and hosts attract guests, and this cycle is the key implication of network externalities. And these network externalities have huge implications in designing platforms. Okay, so one important implication of the network externalities is pricing. Right? So again, I'm not going to talk about today I'm not going to talk about the details of economic theory, but I want to touch upon a few points that are driven by the network externalities, the economics of network externalities. Right? The point one is, I think this is standard economic theory that probably you learned in Econ 101, but the point one is set higher prices, charge higher prices for the consumers or users who have inelastic demand, or charge higher prices for those who have a higher cost of serving. This is standard economics theory, probably nothing to do with the network externalities, but point 2 is more important. Okay, so the point 2, that's another implication of network externalities, which is the platform should subsidize groups of users who create value for other users. Okay, so here, and let me clarify that what pricing means. The pricing here means that the fee for using the service of the platform. Right? So users, if they want to use the service of the platform, they have to pay something for the platform. Right? So the usage is charged. That's what I mean by pricing, and how much the platform should charge to use the platform. That's what I'm talking about. And the second point means that sometimes the platform needs to subsidize groups of users who create value for other users. So which means that sometimes some users can use the platform service for free, but the other side of the market, they have to pay for the platform. Okay. So it depends on the market. So let me give you a few examples about pricing. On the left side, we have e-commerce platform like Amazon, Etsy, eBay. In this platform, typically buyers don't have to pay for the platform. Of course, they have to pay for the products they buy, but they don't have to pay for the platform. Right? So they can use the service of the platform for free. Whereas sellers, they have to pay commission. Right? When they list the products and the products get sold, then the sellers have to pay some commissions. So here I'm posting Amazon's. So here I'm posting the Amazon's commission schedule. So it depends on the category. For the book category, the commission is 15%, which is quite high. But for consumer electronics or PC, the commission is quite low. Right? So depending on the category, they have to pay for the Amazon. Okay. On the right-hand side, we have online labor market. So let's say Upwork or Amazon's MTurk. Typically on those online labor market, employers, they don't have to pay commission for the platform. Okay? Of course, they have to pay wage for the freelancers, okay? But they don't have to pay fees for the platform. But freelancers, workers, right? They have to pay commission for the platform. They get paid wage, but the fraction of wage is going to the platform. Okay, so here, I'm posting Upwork's paying fee schedule for the freelancers. Okay? So in Upwork, if you earn not much, like less than $500, you have to pay 20% of your wage to the platform. But if you earn more, getting higher than $10,000, your commission is going to be 5%. So you have to pay only 5% of your wage to the platform. Okay? So depending upon who is creating the value for the platform to sustain the high network externalities, some people have to pay for the commission, but some people don't have to pay because they create values. Okay? So the platform needs to identify who is actually creating the values. Okay? If the platform cannot identify which side of the market is creating value for other users, maybe your pricing schedule might be not optimal. Okay? So that's one implication of network externalities, implications for pricing. And another implication of network externalities is its impacts on competition. Okay? Because of this cycle that network externalities create, typically a few firms are going to dominate the market, like GAFA, right? Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple, they're dominating their markets. Right? And this is what the antitrust authorities in the US and many other countries are kind of concerned about. Right? Again, the mechanism behind this dominant platform is network externalities. Under network externalities, typically winners are going to take all surplus, and also consumers are tended to get locked in, right? Because of this kind of positive cycle that I put figure here, right? So there are more users that leads to more data. More data leads to smarter algorithms, and a smarter algorithm leads to better products, and then that attracts more users. So because of network externalities, we have this cycle, and this cycle makes the platform bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay, so this winner-take-all situation and lock-in properties lead to huge entry barriers. Okay, so even though there are small entrepreneurs who have nice, innovative ideas, they may not be able to enter the market, right? Because of these huge entry barriers. Okay. I'm not saying this network externalities and a market dominance is a bad thing, right? Because the products are getting bigger, better. Because of more data, more users, the product quality is getting better. Okay? But there is a potential for dynamic inefficiency, right? Like I said, some small entrepreneurs with really innovative ideas cannot get into the market because of network externalities entry barrier, and the customers cannot get access to such innovative ideas, right? So my recent paper with Michi Igami at Yale, my colleague at Yale, we looked at potential dynamic inefficiency in the computer hard disk drive market. So if you're interested in, you can take a look. Okay. So this is another implications of network externalities, and this is one I think the most important characteristics of platform. Okay. Right. So next, I want to talk about market design, which is the second economic factor that I want to talk about. Okay. The concept of market design is how to create efficient market. Okay. And maybe some of you remember that in 2012, Nobel Prize of Economics were given to Professor Alvin Ross. He was at the time Harvard, but now he is in Stanford for the contribution for the network market design. Okay, so the concept of market design is his famous book here, Who Gets What, okay, and why, at which price. So this is a concept of market design. So in market design, economists consider, algorithms and mechanisms that determine who gets what and which price. Okay, and there are many points that the market design consider, but here I want to touch upon three factors that are, I think, important for the designing online marketplaces. The first one is how to sell products or how to match sellers and the buyers. So this is a question about designing selling mechanism. And the second point is how to provide information or how to structure the information. So this is a question about search and ranking algorithm design. And the third point is how to facilitate reliable transactions. So this is a question about how to build trust and reputation in online platform. Okay, and I also want to add to this that traditionally the theory of market design has been applied to kind of limited applications such as school choice or medical doctor residency match or kidney exchange. Those applications are of course important applications, but these days the concepts and theory of market design are applied to the design of online marketplaces. And here, data-driven market design is extremely useful. So now data meets theory of market design, and it's going to be really a fruitful area of research and also in practice. Okay, so let me talk about these 3 points about market design. So the first point is about setting mechanism. Again, this is a question about how to sell products or how to match buyers and sellers. Okay? Here, I want to characterize the setting mechanism into 2 buckets. Okay? One is centralized setting mechanism. The other is decentralized setting mechanism. Okay? So in a centralized setting mechanism, basically the platform and the algorithm is going to decide who gets what and which price. Okay, so an example is Uber. In Uber, when you're using Uber, you don't select a driver. Okay? You don't select a driver, and also a driver cannot select a rider. It's basically the platform and the algorithm is going to decide the match between a rider and driver, right? And also the price is determined by so-called the surge pricing algorithm depending upon the demand and the supply. Right? So this is a centralized setting mechanism. Okay, whereas decentralized mechanism is something like Airbnb. Right? So in Airbnb, buyers are going to search for the apartments. okay? And they send applications and offers. And then hosts are going to decide whether or not to accept the offer and then decide the price, right? So in a decentralized setting mechanism, buyers and sellers somehow needed to search and meet in a virtual online marketplaces, right? So, what is a key determinant between the centralized setting mechanism and a decentralized setting mechanism is, I think, the degree of preference heterogeneity. So how consumer preference is different across people. Okay? So for example, Uber, okay, when you're using Uber, what we do care about is safe and quick ride to the destination, right? I don't really care about identity of the driver, or I don't care about the type of the car that driver is using, right? What I do care about is safe and quick drive to my destination. So in such a market, preference heterogeneity is not that huge, right? In such a market, the centralized mechanism is probably works better, right? In that market, probably if Uber allows riders and drivers to select their partner, probably it takes a lot of time to match a driver and the rider, right? And the transaction costs are going to be huge, and maybe the platform does not work, right? So in such a market, centralized setting mechanism probably works better. But on the other hand, in Airbnb, preference heterogeneity is huge, right? Some people prefer quiet and spacious room, but some people care only about price, right? If consumer preference is heterogeneous, then centralized mechanism probably doesn't work. Right? It doesn't really make sense that Airbnb is going to tell that you should stay at this apartment, you should stay at this apartment, right? If Airbnb starts saying that kind of thing, probably it's not going to success, right? So in such a market with preference heterogeneity, decentralized mechanism make more sense, right? And in decentralized setting mechanism, I think there are a whole bunch of different types of pricing algorithms. Okay? I create 2 buckets here, like auctions pricing mechanism or posted pricing setting mechanism in decentralized setting mechanism category, but it can be even more creative ways to determine prices. Okay? So auctions, eBay, for example, eBay became popular in 2000s because of seller running auctions, okay? And the Prosper.com, this is a leading online peer-to-peer lending market that I'm gonna talk about in the next slide. The Prosper.com, it was also using auctions when they're determining interest rates of loans. Or TaskRabbit, this is an online labor market. They used to use auctions to determine prices, okay? Economists like auctions, right? Theoretically speaking, auctions are efficient and optimal mechanism to find and discovering the optimal price. Okay? So even though buyers have different preference and different information, auctions can gather that information effectively and efficiently to identify the optimal price. Okay? So but there are some conditions, certain conditions that guarantee that auction can work. Right? So for example, there is no huge search cost or transaction cost or information frictions, et cetera, et cetera. Right? If such information friction, search friction, or other transaction costs are huge, auctions are no longer optimal mechanism. Okay? Too complicated to design auctions under such situations. In that case, maybe the simpler pricing algorithm, pricing mechanism might be preferred, which is posted pricing. Okay? So under posted pricing, basically the platform or sellers can decide the price. And for the buyer's side, buyers can just decide whether or not to accept the posted price. Okay? So this is much simpler algorithm. Okay? But if there is no friction in the world, maybe auctions are known to be optimal mechanism. Okay? So the question is, which mechanism works better? Okay? It depends on the market. So there is no perfect answer, but I want to talk about one case study. This is an online lending market, Prosper.com. So again, the Prosper.com is a peer-to-peer lending market. So both borrowers and lenders are individuals like us. So actually, I'm also investing in this Prosper.com, but they used to use auctions. They started the business in 2006, and when they started the business, they used auctions to determine the interest rates of the loan. So how does it work? So I have a picture here, Prosper.com. So there is one borrower. There is one borrower who is asking 20,000 bucks. Okay. For this borrower asking 20,000 bucks, there are a bunch of different lenders. Okay. So each potential lender gives only a small fraction of the loan. Okay. So what they do is that they bid the interest rate and the amount. Okay, each potential bidder and lender bids interest rate and the amount. Okay, and the final interest rate for the borrower is determined by the multi-unit uniform price auctions. Okay, so they run auctions to determine the interest rates. Okay? But in 2010, they stopped using auctions and they switched from auctions to posted pricing. Okay? There are various reasons behind this change, but we can look at before and after this policy change to see, which pricing mechanism works better, right? So what happened? So here I have two plots about interest rates and funding probabilities before and after they switch from auctions to posted pricing. Okay, so the dark vertical line here shows the timing at which Prosper changed from auctions to posted pricing. Okay, so on the left panel here, it shows that interest rates under the auction mechanism is higher than the interest rates under the posted pricing mechanism. Okay, so by switching from auctions to posted pricing, interest rates of the loan is going to be smaller. Okay, they decrease. Okay, but in terms of funding probabilities, the probability that borrowers can get money, actually it increases a lot. Okay, before the policy change, before the setting mechanism change, the funding probability was about 25%, but after the change, the funding probability increases to like 70%, right? So the interest rates get lower and the funding probability gets higher. So for the borrower's perspective, this is a good change, right? Because they can get lower interest rate and the funding probability is higher. Okay? So in one of my recent studies, I look at, I decompose these changes into two parts. Okay, one part is intensive margin effect, and the other part is extensive margin part effect. Okay, so the intensive margin effect is basically fixing the set of borrowers and lenders. Okay, fixing the borrowers and lenders. Okay, then only I change the setting mechanism from auctions to posted pricing. Okay, then what's going to happen? That's the intensive margin effect. Okay? And then another part is extensive margin effect. Which means that maybe auctions and posted pricing attract different type of borrowers and lenders. Okay, so we allow some lenders are going to leave, some lenders are going to enter, some borrowers going to leave, some borrowers going to enter. That's the extensive margin effect. Right? Well, then I decompose the total effects that I show in the previous slide into intensive margin effect and extensive margin effect using this Prosper.com data. And what I found is that actually auctions are better for intensive margin effect, but the posted pricing mechanism is better for the extensive margin effect. So what this means is that if borrowers and lenders know the auctions very well, they're experienced about auctions, okay? They know how to bid, they know how to set reserve interest rates, etc., then auctions are actually better. Okay? Auctions are better algorithm, but in terms of extensive margin effect, posted pricing is better. Maybe auctions are not easy to understand, so under posted pricing mechanism, maybe better borrowers and lenders are attracted. Okay? So it looks like if you look at these two figures, it looks like the posted pricing mechanism works better than the auction mechanism, but most of the effect behind these changes are coming from the change in the composition of the borrowers and lenders. That's the extensive margin effect. Okay? So this is one key lesson, right? In designing online platforms, we need to think about both extensive margin effect and intensive margin effect, and what is the level of understanding of the mechanism of the buyers and sellers. Okay? Sometimes auctions are too hard to understand, then maybe posted pricing is easier, and that might attract different type of borrowers and lenders. Okay? So this is one study I have done. But this change from auctions to posted pricing is not unique in this P2P lending market. Actually, in eBay, like I said, eBay became popular because of seller running auctions. But so in 2003, about 90% of listings were using auctions. But this percentage is declining over time. And in 2011, only 25% of listings were using auctions. Okay, so the percentage of auctions is actually declining even in eBay. Because what's happening behind this change is that the market becomes more and more competitive. The market becomes more competitive, then the margin of using auctions over posted pricing is getting smaller and smaller. Okay, and at some point, auctions are not that beneficial. Right? So then people prefer a simpler mechanism, which is posted pricing. Okay? So because of market competitiveness and the simpleness of posting pricing mechanism, again, eBay is now dominated by posted pricing instead of auctions. And the similar thing happens also in a TaskRabbit. Again, TaskRabbit online labor market were using auctions, but now they are using posted pricing. So this is one aspect of the market design. And the next point about market design I want to talk about is search and ranking algorithm. Okay, so this is a question about how to structure the information. Okay, our premise, we thought that because of internet, the search cost is going to be zero. Right? Because of the internet, I can compare one product to another product easily. So therefore, consumers can find the best product with the best deal quickly. But unfortunately, in reality, it doesn't happen. Right? In reality, there are more retailers and more products available in the market, and our search process is getting more complicated and it's more time consuming. Right? So one important task for the platform is to design search and ranking algorithm to help consumers' search process. Okay? And one key aspect to understanding consumer search behavior is, again, heterogeneity of consumer preference and heterogeneity of products and sellers. Okay? So for example, iPad. When you're searching for iPad, probably you have good sense that which features you do care. Maybe some people care about screen size, some people care about speed, some people care about the storage. But for those type of products, iPad, the product features are well defined. So therefore, our search process is very structured. Right? In such a case, the platform's task is relatively simple because they can provide more sorting options so that the buyers can easily sort the products in terms of the features that they do care about. Right? On the other hand, let's say clothing. For the clothing category, maybe search is really difficult, right? Because product characteristics, product features are not well defined. In such a category, search process is not just about identifying the best deal or best product, but rather it increases the learning process. In such category, maybe consumers do not have what they really want to buy. Right? So through the search process, they search products, but at the same time, they also learn their preferences, and also they learn what kind of products are available in the market. Right? So in such a case, the search process is very unstructured, okay? And the task for the platform is also different. They have to provide like more images or videos or contextual information, things like that, so that to help consumers search and the learning process. Okay? That's one aspect. Another important aspect I want to talk about is congestion. Okay? The search and ranking algorithm can create congestion in a marketplace, or because of the search cost, people typically search and click only the products in a top page. We don't go to the second page, the third page, etc., etc. Okay? We only look at the product in a top page. Okay? And because of that, products in a top page attract a lot of attention and clicks. So for example, in an apartment rental market or online labor market, only the apartments or workers in the top page attract a lot of clicks and a lot of offers. And this type of congestion is not efficient, right? Because there are maybe more, there may be similar products available in a second page or third page, but because of search costs, consumers are not aware of those available products. So the one important task of search and ranking algorithm is to navigate consumers to less competitive, less crowded products. Okay? So that allows to increase the number of transactions and also make the market more efficient. Right? So in designing search and ranking algorithm, we have to be careful about consumer preference heterogeneity and also the degree of congestion that search and ranking algorithm may create. Okay, the third point about our market design, and I think this is important, which is trust and reputation. How to build reputation and trust in online marketplaces. Okay, and again, because of the internet, there are more sellers in the market. Okay, but some sellers are good sellers, some sellers are bad sellers. Okay, in the offline world, it's easier to inspect and check the quality of goods, quality of sellers. Sometimes I can talk with the sellers in person to make sure that this seller is reliable, this product is reliable. But in offline world, most of the transactions are done anonymously, and I don't see the seller in person. And moreover, trades are pay first and I take delivery later. Right? So therefore, the asymmetric information about the seller's quality or the product's quality is huge. It's bigger than the offline market. Okay? And if this asymmetric information problem about the seller's quality or product's quality is severe, the adverse selection problem comes in, which means that only bad sellers remain in the market and the good sellers are going to exit the market. Okay? Eventually, the market is going to be collapsed. Okay? This is what the George Akerlof, the famous economist, predicted in his 1970 paper. Right? So the platform needs to avoid that worst situation by building trust and reputation in a marketplace. Okay? This is not just about what economists care about, but building trust is essential for branding and long-term performance. Right? So this is a quote from Jeff Bezos. He said, a brand for a company is like a reputation for a person. You earn reputation by trying to do hard things well. So building reputation and trust in a marketplace is not easy. Okay? But if we can do that, that's, the benefit is big. Okay? So how do we do this? How do we build reputation and trust? So I have 3 plans here. Okay? Plan 1 is to use third-party verification or third-party participation. Okay? So for example, Amazon is using Amazon fulfillment sticker for non-Amazon sellers. So even though some products are sold by non-Amazon sellers, but still buyers can trust the sellers because there is Amazon fulfillment sticker and they know that the transactions are handled by Amazon. Okay? Or eBay and PayPal, they are using buyer money back guarantee. So if products are misrepresented or damaged, then eBay and PayPal can reimburse for the bad sellers. Okay? Because of that third-party verification or participation, the buyers can trust the buyers and can make transactions easily. That's plan 1. And plan 2 is to use online reputation system. Nearly all online marketplaces are using some sort of online reputation system. So after each transaction, a buyer and a seller need to evaluate each other. And the platform is going to aggregate those feedbacks and a post. So like there are 87% 5 stars and 10% 4 stars, et cetera, et cetera. And this kind of feedback and reputation is very helpful for subsequent users. Okay, that's the plan 2. And the plan 3, this is not widely used in many online marketplaces, but we can also use credible signaling mechanism. Actually, this is what I have been studying using the prosper.com that we saw in the previous slides. Maybe if I have time, I want to talk a little bit about my study. Okay. So here I want to start from reputation systems. Again, nearly all online marketplaces are using some sort of reputation systems, right? And of course, we should use some reputation systems, but there are a few issues that we should be careful, we should be aware of. Right? So the first issue is grade inflation. What this means is that everybody gets 5 stars. If everybody gets 5 stars, then that kind of reputation system is not useful. It doesn't tell much information, useful information for buyers. Right? Why this great inflation occurs? One of the potential reasons could be concern for retaliation. Okay, so the paper by Chris Nosko and Steve Tradelis, they show this concern for retaliation is one reason for great inflation. Everybody gives 5 stars. Okay. There are several ways to mitigate this concern for retaliation. One is, allowing only one-sided feedback. Like in Amazon, only sellers are evaluated, but buyers are not evaluated. But this is one way. Or another way is using blind feedback. So I can see my reputation or review only after I submit my review about the other part of the market. Okay? So that mitigates and reduces a concern and a fear for retaliation. Okay? And another method kind of related to the blind feedback is done by a recent study in Airbnb. Under Fradkin, those people run field experiment, A/B testing in Airbnb market. And what they did is delaying revelation of reviews, okay? And that reduces retaliation concern. Okay, so I post a review, but I review a host, but that review is going to be revealed like 2 weeks later or 3 weeks later. Then my concern about retaliation is smaller and mitigated, and therefore they're going to provide honest experience, right? So this is one way to mitigate the great inflation. But still, great inflation is ubiquitous. Great inflation is prevalent in many online marketplaces. And how to design the informative reputation system is an important market design question. And we are still considering how to solve this problem. Okay. Another problem that I think more important and more problematic is fake reviews. Again, if there are too many fake reviews, then of course, consumers cannot rely on the review system, reputation systems, right? And the platform is going to lose their reputation as well, right? How to solve fake review problem? One important thing is, of course, restricting the right to leave reviews, okay? So who can write reviews, that can be determined by the platform. So that's one way to avoid the fake reviews. So there is a famous study by Maislin, Dover, and Chevalier. She's my colleague at Yale. So they're looking at TripAdvisor and Expedia. Okay? In TripAdvisor, everybody can leave reviews. Okay? Regardless whether I stayed at this hotel or not, still I can leave reviews about this hotel. Okay? Whereas in Expedia, only those who make transactions through Expedia can leave the reviews. Okay? So what they did is basically compare the same hotel in the TripAdvisor and Expedia. Okay, they compare the review of the same hotel in two different review platforms. Okay, and what they find is, of course, in TripAdvisors, there are more fake reviews than Expedia. Okay, so restricting the right to review for those who actually make transactions is one way to avoid fake reviews. Okay, but still only allowing for those who make transactions in a platform can leave reviews, still there is a problem. Okay? This is a very recent study done by Hollenbeck and Proserpio in 2012. He's actually my co-author. So what they did is very interesting. So there are private fake review recruiting groups in Facebook. So there are sellers who are selling products in Amazon, but they recruit fake reviewers in Facebook. Okay, so the reviews are actually purchased. So what they did is on the Facebook, they create private groups to recruit fake reviewers. Okay, and those fake reviewers actually make a purchase. They're going to buy those products. Okay, and of course they get reimbursed and they get paid extra. And in exchange for that, those fake reviewers provide 5 stars. Okay. So what they found, they have very interesting graphs in the paper, but this is one of the graphs they provide. So the red line here, the vertical red line shows the timing at which the authors identify that this fake review website starts. Okay? Fake reviews website starts. Once they start recruiting, the number of 5 stars in Amazon's marketplace jumps up from like on average 5 to on average 8 or 9. Okay, So because of those fake reviews, the number of 5 stars increases a lot. Okay. And after a few days, of course, Amazon also put a lot of efforts to eliminate suspicious reviews. So therefore, the number of 5 stars decreased. But this is what they found. There are fake reviews market, and how to solve and kill those fake review markets is an important question. It's an important question we should ask. And this is again the ongoing research, and we don't know yet how to solve this problem. But there are fake reviews, and as long as I checked today, there are a lot of those private groups available in the market. Okay. Okay. So this is the second point, and now I'm going to talk about a little bit about the third point about market design using the signaling mechanism. Because of time, probably I should not talk about the details of this slide, but if you're interested in, I'm talking about this mechanism about my paper as well offline. Okay, but the key point here is that not really using third-party verification or online reputation system, but it relies on the incentives of sellers and buyers. Okay, so the platform can design the mechanism so that sellers can credibly signal their private information about like the quality of the products. Okay, there are good sellers and bad sellers, and the good sellers want to, signal their good quality. They don't want to be regarded as bad sellers. Okay, so the platform can design the mechanism so that bad sellers do not want to imitate like good sellers. Okay, and it sounds like magical, but in our recent paper, we actually show that in a prosper market, online peer-to-peer lending market, when they were using auctions, this public reserve interest rate, which is the maximum interest rate that the borrower is willing to accept. This public reserve interest rate can work as a signaling mechanism so that good borrowers can signal the good quality and bad borrowers cannot imitate good borrowers. Okay, this mechanism is useful because this is supported as an equilibrium outcome. Okay, so the the power of equilibrium is big. They cannot deviate from the equilibrium, right? So utilizing the incentive of sellers so that the good sellers can signal their private information, good quality, is another important aspect of market design. Okay? But I think this is a kind of difficult because we need to understand the economic incentives very carefully, and we need to make sure that in the data they have that kind of incentive. Right? So we need to carefully design the mechanism in actual marketplace so that the signaling mechanism can work. Okay? Sorry, I don't have much time to talk about the details how signaling works, but if you're interested in, I'm happy to talk about this offline. All right. Because time is limited, I want to talk about the last economic factor, that is about regulation of the platform. Again, there are so many things that is going on in the current antitrust cases, but I want to talk about basically 3 things and open up for the Q&As. Right, so the first issue is, again, like I said, market power. Network externalities create huge market power and entry barriers. And also on top of that, some platforms may kill the competition. In a recent public hearing, Mark Zuckerberg on Facebook, he kind of admitted that the acquisition of Instagram by Facebook, the purpose of that is basically killing the competition. Right, so that kind of killer acquisition becomes more and more popular in this online platform market, and that may lead to more market concentration and kill some innovations. Okay? This is an empirical question. The market power itself may not be good, may not be bad. We don't know, but we need to be careful of this market power. The second issue is, of course, about privacy. Those online platforms collect a lot of user information. And again, collecting more user information is good because they can improve the quality of the service, but at the same time, there is a risk for leakage, and they may be used by other bad actors. right, like Cambridge Analytica, and that is a concern for the democracy, right? That's the second concern. And the third point, the third issue is the effects on incumbent businesses, right? So when Uber and Airbnb enter the market, taxis and hotels, those industries fought against aggressively to Uber and Airbnb because taxis and hotels, they're regulated heavily. There is a license cap, there is a price cap, but Uber and Airbnb, they are not under the regulation because they're individuals. But maybe that kind of regulation is not fair, and how to create fair regulations for incumbents and also the new entrants like Uber and Airbnb, how to design the regulation. The fair regulation is a big issue about regulation. Okay. So this is 5 points that I want to talk about. Okay. So just quick wrap up. The platform business is becoming more and more popular in everywhere. And there are 5 key economic factors that I talked about: network externalities, setting mechanism, search, and trust and reputation. And lastly, regulation. I'm sorry I didn't talk much about the details of each point, but I hope this talk gives you some insights to understanding the business and what's going on in online platforms. Okay. And definitely, we need more research, and we need more research collaborations between academia and private sectors to facilitate understanding and design a better society and a better business world. Okay. Yeah, so this is all I have for today, and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Kosuke. It's a wonderful summary of the field, how to manage platform firm. And it's a very insightful. New knowledge from research should be definitely useful for us. And from now, I want to start discussion and Q&A. And if you have any questions, please post your question to Q&A. And if you want to learn more about the question, please upvote. And so I want to start the discussion. So we got a lot of insights, but the theme of this event is how can we unleash these insights to business and society? And can you briefly summarize what kind of benefits can we as a business or government or data scientists can we get? Can you explain a bit more, please?
Yeah. Thank you for your question. Yeah, so I think I talked much about economic theory, and then I couple those economic theories with data, some research results by academia. So I think for business, understanding the key economic theories, key economic factors is important for like product management, or sales, or finance. In designing business, and understanding economic factors is very important. And also, of course, for the government, how to regulate the market. We need to understand the economic forces, what kind of incentives buyers and sellers on the platform has. We need to understand those background driving forces to better design the policies. And for data scientists, I think it is important to understand again the theory when we analyze the data, right? So we can regress y on x1, x2, x100, but what can we get that kind of regression without any thinking about theory? Right? So theory gives us some insights about how to look at the data, how to cut the data, how to analyze the data, right? So maybe in some cases, based on this theory, this kind of pattern should be supported in the data, but maybe sometimes we cannot find in the data. But that's fine. Maybe this theory does not hold in this market, but another theory might hold in this platform. Right? So even though some theory is rejected, still I can get some insights. But without any theory, like that's going to be the kind of waste of time, and we cannot really find good actionable insights from data analysis. So I think in analyzing the data, understanding the economic theory behind the data is very important. It gives us a lot of insights about the data behind the data.
I see. Yeah, it's very important to have theory because these days we are in the flood of data. We have
Yes. Yeah.
bunch of variables, then we often regress some variable on a bunch of variables without
Yeah.
having solid economic theory. It's also true for kind of strategic management area because
Yeah.
even we want to analyze one factor to improve something. But if this variable is not aligned with strategy, then what we are doing? And it
Mhm.
happened to me a week ago. Exactly happened. Someone is trying to improve some KPI, but this KPI is not aligned with strategy. And
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
very important. I fully agree with you. The theory and understanding of what we want to achieve, these things are very important in business management. Of course, the government. And yeah, so I I brought KPI, but what kind of factors are essential to improve their business performance? Um, oh, so yeah, so again, what are essential to improve the business performance? Do you have
Oh,
any
yeah.
thought around this area?
Yeah, sure. I talked about, three economic factors around market design. And I think each point around the market design is very important to improve the performance, the business performance. One thing is, streamlined and organized search and ranking algorithm so that consumer search process is well structured. At the end of the day, customer experience depends really upon whether customers can identify the good products at a great deal. Right? If customers cannot find the products they want, and then probably their customer experience is not really satisfied. It's not good. So I think designing the search and ranking algorithm so that customers really can identify the products they want to buy. That's one important thing. And I was talking about different things, right? And also, again, another thing is reliable transactions. How to build trust and reputation in an online marketplace is very important. So again, especially for the first buyers, there are a lot of uncertainty in the market. Can we believe this platform? Can we believe this seller? Can we believe these products? So the platform needs to solve these uncertainty concerns of the buyers, especially for the first buyers. Otherwise, they cannot, they want to buy from this platform. So maybe we can use, again, the third-party verification or online reputation system, or we can rely on the economic incentives, signaling mechanism. Using those kind of things, we can make the transactions more transparent so that buyers can really understand the quality of the sellers and the buyers, sellers and products that facilitate the more transactions. And I think that's another important thing. And also, I think another thing I want to add is probably, especially for the first-time buyers, it is really important to understand retention incentives. Okay, because of a lot of uncertainties in the market, most of the buyers are first-time buyers. And I'm now working with online apparel platform in Japan, and most of the case, if the customer buys like second time or 3 times or 4 times, they're going to be loyal. They're going to be loyal, and the consumption, the purchase is going to be habitual. Right? So the key is how to make the second transaction or third transaction. That kind of retention is very important. Right? So again, in order to increase that probability, we need to increase the customer experience. We need to provide, the platform should provide better customer experience. And again, that is, resulting from streamlined search process or reliable transactions. So I think, maybe also the platform can send like thank you messages or ask after the transaction that, how about the transaction? Are you satisfied? You're not satisfied? Asking that kind of questions also increase the reputation and the trust of the platform. And also, actually, when I'm working with this online apparel platform in Japan, that kind of no monetary incentives, but thank you messages or asking questions about the feedbacks actually increase the retention a lot, and that leads to habitual consumption after the second purchase. So I think retention to solve the uncertainty, retention strategy to solve uncertainties is, I think, another important essential thing.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So many technical things. So, but by doing some experiment, if it works, of course we can continue. By doing small experiments, maybe platform can improve their performance. It sounds like. So to do so, if we do some experiment, we collect the data. By analyzing data, as we saw your slide, we can get insights. Then we can take a next action. And it sounds like it's very useful. And the good thing of experiment is I also think that we can expose small portion of our business into the experiment. The majority of them we keep as is. So platform firms, they can control a certain type of risks. But of course, I understand that some experiments is huge. It's like switching from auction to posting price. We think it's a very huge.
Yeah, that's a big change.
Yeah. So yeah, but yes, I can't agree more. That data is very important, and big data, analytics, and AI. This is the main theme of this event. And associated with these keywords, if you can, with big data, these things, what is your thought around this area? Can you share your thought?
So can you repeat the questions again? Sorry.
Around analytics, by using big data, AI, and analytics, how typically online platform firms, they can kind of leverage their capability and improve competitive advantage. Can you please share your thought around this area?
Yeah, yeah, sure. I think you talked about the experiment and A/B testing. That's, I think, a very important thing. Many online platforms run thousands of experiments, A/B testing, to make sure that like search process is working well. We can improve the search process. We can improve the ranking. We can improve recommendations, etc. We can improve the pricing. There are a lot of experiments to improve the customer experience and a UI. That's, I think, important thing. Yeah, yes, sorry, it's a bit general, but
yeah. So thank you very much. Yeah, because the data is pretty useful. Typically, the startups, their business model is not fixed. They are subject to huge uncertainty, and they do by changing their business model. Typically, the design of the platform, your talk is very useful because we have rough idea about how we can change our business model, value proposition to customers by changing kind of design of platform. And we learned a lot about kind of success story and how we can use these ideas for platform management. Do you have any kind of example, a real story about unsuccessful story of platform management? Because we often hear success story, but we often want to learn from the failure. We want to learn how can we avoid these things.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know about the audience, so maybe some audience might not like hearing. But let me provide, I think, a few examples about unsuccessful stories. One thing is Apple, but not now, but in 1980s. Okay? In 1980s, when Steve Jobs created Apple computers, actually they charged for developers for toolkits. In order to use toolkits, developers need to pay for Apple. Okay, but that was that strategy that Apple took. Right? Apple really needs those developers to provide the better software. Right? Without good software, consumers cannot use Apple, cannot adapt Apple computers. But in 1980s, Steve Jobs actually charged for developers. Okay? So again, they kind of miscalculate these network externalities and who creates value for the platform. Okay? So in that at the time, developers are creating the value for the platform. So therefore, the Apple should subsidize for the developers. Okay? And then maybe consumers have to compensate for the developers. That might be a good strategy. In the 1980s, as we know, Apple was not really successful, right? So that was the one failure case. And another failure case, a more recent example is, I think, Google Health. So Google Health was developed in, I think, 2002 or something, and they stopped the service in 2008 or something like that. So the idea of Google Health at the time was that collecting the consumer health information on the platform. Okay, but at the time, they started from the consumer side. They started asking consumer health information. Okay, but it didn't really work well. Right? Because consumers do not want to provide health information to the platform. They don't know how their information is going to be used. Right? Google took this strategy for focusing first on the consumer side in Gmail or the search engine or Google Map. For those kind of applications, their strategy of starting from the consumer side worked well. But for the Google Health data, for this particular application, starting from the consumer side is not really working well, because again, the provider side, the medical provider side, is more creating values. Right? Without reliable doctors and medical providers, consumers do not want to provide healthcare information. Right? So in that particular application, they again miscalculated who is creating the value for the platform. And like I said, Google stopped this Google Health service in 2008. So again, it is important to understand who is creating the value for the platform, and that determines the platform's business strategy.
I see. Yes. Thank you very much. It's very good to. This is my first time to hear these things. Yeah, it's like stakeholder management is very one of the essential points in platform farm management. So
yeah.
it's it's very nice to learn that. Yeah. So because so far we learn a lot about kind of big organization like Google
Yeah.
but for small, because most of organizations, platforms, because of the nature of the market, winner takes all, nearly all. This is the kind of phenomena we often observe. But for small organization, they are managing platform firm. Do you have any kind of, can you share your recommendation to small organization? Typically, they just started their business, and yeah.
Yeah. So I think we kind of thought that big data is always good. Big data is always good, right? Google, Amazon, those kind of large platforms create big data, and that is good. But I think the small but good quality data is more useful than big but bad quality data, right? So because garbage in, garbage out. Okay, and if the size of the data gets bigger, it's harder to manage and maintain the quality of the data. So I think for the small platforms, like startups, it is good to start from small size but good quality data. Okay, so how to create good quality data? And maybe we can run small scale field A/B testing or small scale online surveys, but those should be based on scientific findings. It's not based on intuitions or expert intuition or something like that. It should be based on scientific findings, and based on the scientific findings, we can design better A/B testing. We can design online surveys that give the small platforms small but high quality data. Okay? And the high quality data gives us more insights than bad big data. Okay, so I think that's one important strategy. And as the business gets bigger, of course, the platform can access to better data, bigger data. But if the company has that culture, keep the good quality data. If the company has that kind of culture, I think the company can keep making big and also good data as the platform gets, the platform grows.
Oh, yes. So thank you very much. Yeah, because small organization, they don't have enough budget and resource to collect data. But I fully agree with you because although the resource is limited, we can still get key information on key variable by doing some experiment, by collecting data. And that is quite often enough because in the end, we have to change the business model, value proportion, target market, with who we make alliance, and how do we change our revenue stream and so on. And yeah, I really agree with you.
Yeah, so I think another thing I want to I want to add is I think again having the theory and having the questions you want to solve with the data. I've seen many failure cases. Many companies started big data projects and they hired a data scientist, but many companies stopped that kind of projects because they don't know what to do with the data. They don't have the questions, business questions they really want to solve with the data. So without having key business questions that they want to solve with the data, the data is going to be just waste. And again, the garbage in, garbage out, and we don't really get important insights from such data. So I think, again, having the key business questions you want to solve with the data, that is the important thing. And again, like you said, collecting the data is not free; it's costly. So that's why before starting the project, we really need to understand the questions that you want to solve with the data. And actually, when I'm teaching MBA classes, actually I keep telling them that you should start from the questions rather than the data. So that's an important thing I want to add.
Thank you. I agree because we have a lot of data. Typically, quite often, data scientists they throw some data into sub packet, they get some numbers. But numbers should be aligned with, should be insightful for managers and managing C-suite level persons quite often. And yeah, so because time is limited, I want to bring some questions from audience, and I have several. I found one of them is
okay.
So I just read, can you provide practical use cases of big data AI analytics in managing platform?
Yeah, thank you for asking a question. Again, this is a bit general question, but I think one use case that I'm now working on is again the online apparel platform in Japan, and they use big data AI analytics for many things. But one thing they're using is again the customer relationship management, and that I'm actually also interested in. They're also doing a bunch of things. They are using AI and data for designing recommendation systems or search ranking algorithms, etc. They use data for many things, but one unique thing that I like about this online platform in Japan is they're using data for customer relationship management. So they're not really interested in only the short-term transactions, but also they're interested in how to increase the total customer lifetime values by designing better incentives for consumers. So they're not looking at short-term transactions, but also they're thinking about how to provide incentives so that customers are going to be loyal. Okay, so one experiment that we are doing now is that we are asking when is the right timing to send messages about retention. Okay, in particular, after making a first purchase, their intention to buy the next product is actually very high. So the purchase probability over time is actually going to decrease over time. Okay, so if I send the thank you message and the retention incentive too early, like next day of the first purchase, probably it doesn't really work well because the customer still has high intention to buy the next order. But let's say if it's too late, like 180 days later, maybe the customer's intention to buy is small and they forget this platform. So maybe it's too late. So when is the right timing to send the retention incentive? That's I think important question. When is it perfect timing to do that? That's one thing I'm working on. We are still doing the analysis, so I cannot tell you when is the right timing to send the retention incentives, but I think that's an important thing. One case study that I can talk about. Sorry, I'm not sure if I answered to the question.
Yeah, thank you very much, because you answered nicely. Because of the tools, the data, again, we already have a discussion, like data tools are just not the essence. The essence of business, typically the management, is how can we create a value to our stakeholders? And your answer is spot on.
Yeah, so I think when we started this project, our question is how to maximize the customer value. Okay? How to maximize the value of the platform to the customer. So that's the key idea of our project. And we use data and experiment and machine learning techniques to maximize the value for the customer of the platform.
Yeah, so I want to ask the next question. Next question is, what statistical tools are the most commonly used in kind of platform management? That's the question. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a challenging question, but I mean, they use all bunch of different type of statistical methods, but they of course use simple regression models. They also use machine learning models. They also use A/B testing, and also economists sometimes use so-called structural models. And I talked about a few examples of my study, but in my study, I'm using so-called structural model, which is kind of different from regression and machine learning, but it's kind of different version of a statistical model. But they use all bunch of different types of statistical models, and I think regression-based models and machine learning-based models, they are typically used for making predictions of consumer behavior, right? Which customer is more likely to respond, okay? Which customer is more likely to purchase, okay? In order to make predictions of next customer behavior, maybe we can use regression-based models or machine learning models. That's one application, but I think a lot of business questions are about causality, why this is happening. Right? In order to understand the mechanism and why this is happening, we need to establish the causal relationship. Right? So this coupon causes the purchase of this customer, that kind of things. Right? In order to understand the causal relationship, we need to use A/B testing or something related to A/B testing to understand the causal relationship. And I think prediction itself is useful, but at the same time, the big business questions like whether posted pricing is better than auctions, we need to establish the causal relationship, right? So to answer that kind of big business questions and decision making, we needed to go beyond the prediction analysis and think about how to make causal assessment. Okay, and sometimes we cannot run A/B testing, like switching from auctions to posted pricing. We cannot run we cannot run A/B testing. This is too huge, so we cannot run experiments. But the structural econometric models that I talked about can answer that kind of questions. Again, I'm sorry I cannot talk about the details, but that kind of a structural economic theory-based model can answer that kind of big business questions as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, tools are just tools, and I agree with you, because the first we really have to start. What is our key questions? To solve this question, we usually pick up tools.
Yes,
and
yes.
Because the most commonly used tools, maybe in my experience, because this is how I do handle the business problems. first I look at their objectives and the direction. I look at strategy, and then their implement execution area. By looking at those, I want to always detect, is that a question we really want to address? Quite often, it is not the question we have to address because it is creating strategy from strategy.
Yeah.
And but doing so, once we fix the question, then we can work on the data and tools. Now that's the stage, which tool do we use? Because we have a bunch of tools, even available, freely available. Python, many tools are there. So once because rather than applying the tools, really figuring out the question. Once we figure it out, it's nearly done.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
And, let's move on to the next question. And there are so many. So what can you share your thoughts around big data and AI for digital and marketing? The question is vague, but
for digital and marketing.
Yeah, digital.
Yeah, I mean, marketing also use a lot of data. I'm teaching customer analytics course for our MBA students in Yale School of Management, and when I'm teaching this course, basically I'm telling we can use AI analytics in each stage of the customer lifecycle. The customer lifecycle includes customer acquisition, customer development, and customer retention. Right? So this is the customer relationship management in total, but we can use AI, big data analytics in each stage of the customer analytics. Like in the customer acquisition stage, we can think about which customer we should target. Right? Maybe we should target to the customers whose purchase probability or response probability is high, or we can target to certain characteristics of customers. Right? Using the data, we can identify this segment of customers. Using the data, we can segment the customers, and we can decide which segment we want to target. That's one application in acquisition. In customer development stage, the second stage, we can think about which customer is going to upgrade the service. Can we identify the next product that this customer is going to buy? This is cross-selling. The cross-selling and upselling. How to identify those opportunities for cross-selling and upselling. This is another application of big data and AI, and we can use like recommendation systems, or we can use market basket analysis. That's a simple machine learning algorithm to implement this customer development analysis. And in the customer retention stage, again, we can identify which customer is more likely to stop the service, or which customer is more fragile. Again, you can use the data to predict customers' purchase and retention probabilities. We can, identify which segment we should target. Right? So I think in marketing, we can use big data analysis to improve the customer relationship management. And again, we need to understand the marketing theories behind it to further, facilitate the analysis of the data in marketing.
Thank you very much. Time is coming up. Although we want to answer questions, because of time, we have to stop here. But